right, so my name is Jeana. Alayaay. I'm a product manager at Pivotal Labs, which is an extreme programming shop here in San Francisco. And I'm going to do a short talk here on what I believe to be the future of product management. I'm going to try to run through quickly and hopefully go into some Q&A and open discussion here at the end. So, a little mismatch on the title here, but so I have Feeding the Furnace and the Future of Product Management. So this is me. Please tweet at me. Please tweet at Pivotal Labs, and feel free to grab my email address from me at the end if you'd like to chat more. So let's talk a little bit about historic product management, which is really project management. And the goal of the product team was to feed the furnace that was the development team and to just continue to shovel coal into it. So that's changed a little bit. Now the current state of product management has changed. It's expanded to include product managers, not just product managers, who aren't just keepers of the team but are actually members, designers, and business roles. And the roles themselves have changed, but the primary function of the team has not changed so much. We're still shoveling coal into like that thing which is development. But product is actually starting to change. So there are new constraints based on the physical world: devices, wearables, fashion. Everyone knows we're going mobile first. Multi-part products and services, and also complex supply chains. So what does that mean? So first of all, consumers have a ton of choice these days. So they have the ability to demand things that they need and want, and they have a lot of expectations about what makes for a good experience. So it's not that we create the thing and we're like, okay, now you have to use it because it's the only thing out there. They can actually make demands on this. Sorry about this. That's right. We're not going to worry about it. And so in order to make products that teams need and want, the way that the team works really matters. Because I think that building the right team and building the right thing is actually easy. So like I think we have the technology, the ability, all of the things that we need to build the right thing are in existence, and really it's about convincing each other to build the right thing. And I mean intra-team, not like convincing the consumers. So an interesting thing is happening. There are a lot of disciplines in the realm of technology that are concerned with building the right thing. And some of them are lean startup, lean, agile, lean UX, agile UX, DevOps, cust dev, on and on and on. And all of these things are concerned with building the right thing. And they've begun to converge. And there's a new philosophy that's showed up recently. It's called Balanced Team. It's been around roughly since 2011. Came primarily out of the UX community. And the little blurb here is, the Balanced Team is a global movement of people who value multidisciplinary collaboration and iterative delivery focused on customer value as a source for innovation. So I think that this particular line really is important, so customer value. And so what does that mean? So the Balanced Team, when I think about it, is really a three-legged stool. And the product is the seat, and it's supported by design, engineering, and product. And by product, I mean product management. So reimagining product teams. So in this world, our new job is to empathize with the customers, understand the risks, figure out which risks are the most detrimental to the business, and devise experiments to validate risk and reduce that risk through solutions. And so here it is again. Here's what I believe the future of product management is. And here, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes Balanced Teams different. So do I have I actually need 4 volunteers. Anybody? Just come up to the front.
All right.
Awesome. We got 2, we got 3, 1 more. One more. Okay. So these 3 folks here, how many handshakes do you think it will take for all of you guys to meet? 3. Okay, let's just play it out here.
Hi, I'm Gone.
1.
Peter. Thomas. Peter.
2.
Elisa.
Peter.
Oh, we added a 4th.
Hi.
Okay, so but for 3, it's for 3. So let's add in the 4th now. And so we've actually doubled the number of interactions that it takes for everyone to meet, just with 1 person on a team. And so, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Oh, thank you. So just by adding one person, we've actually doubled the number of interactions it takes. And this really speaks a lot to how teams come to agreement. So Kent Beck is the father of extreme programming. And in the second version of extreme programming, he actually talks about what makes highly functional teams. And so he says, the courage to speak truths, pleasant or unpleasant, fosters communication and trust. The courage to discard failing solutions and seek new ones encourages simplicity. And the courage to seek real, concrete answers creates feedback. So process, what does that mean for process? So that means we've all become facilitators. So our job is to facilitate processes that serve your team's goals and engender trust. Processes should change as your goals change, so they're not static. And the team does not serve the process serves the team. And so, again, here, let's talk about product leadership. This is a different world. Again, we're facilitators. We're not dictators. We're not heroes. We're not martyrs. And we're really pragmatic. And so every day we're talking about why we're here and why we're doing the things that we do. And again, like, the process that we're creating around that is changing as our goals change. So as facilitators, what do we do? So as product managers and as designers and as engineers, what we're not going to do is go into corners and come out with decisions that we're going to then try to persuade our team into. So our goal is to get the right minds in the room and actually extract the best available knowledge at the time in order to imagine all of the possibilities, not just one possibility that comes from one role. And it's not really about consensus or democracy. So decisions are made explicitly for the purpose of moving teams forward. And again, like, we're not dictators. PMs aren't dictators, designers aren't dictators, engineers aren't dictators. Like, decisions are made as a service to the team with the purpose of moving it forward. And so, back to feeding the furnace, the goal really is to shovel the coal in a new way. And hopefully we're shoveling the coal together versus just to feed into development. So that's it. Build awesome teams that build awesome shit. And love to open up the floor to Q&A or to discussion or thoughts, all of the above, or none of the above.
Okay, so you said that there's no dictator, but like, there's that time when like something just has to get decided and everyone has a different opinion about what it should be. Mm-hmm. Like, someone has to decide, so what happens?
Yeah, so I think this is really specific to this new role of product managers. And I think that specifically when I talk about not being dictators, I'm really talking about product managers. And so this idea of making a call in service to your team is much different than making the call because you think you know better. And I think that, like, it also assumes that you've actually already gone to the team and you've said, okay, like, what are all the possibilities and solutions? And, like, do we have the best available knowledge already in the room? I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
Can you talk about an instance where you had a project where that last point where actually you have to withdraw from the process because it's not serving the team? Can you talk about one instance when you had that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when people specifically look at disciplines, I think Agile and Lean are really good examples of this. People think of those systems as being very inflexible, and I think that that can be true, and I think that when you're doing a really good job of practicing Agile or Lean, like, that flexibility is really important. And so I think things as simple as we do iteration planning meetings on Monday, always. Like, what does that serve, right? So, like, maybe Monday makes sense for this 6 months, but maybe Tuesday makes sense in the next 6 months. I think also, too, like, that goes all the way to complicated decisions where maybe the way that we gathered requirements, I'm going to use that word loosely, from stakeholders needs to change because it's not serving the product, and we have evidence to support that. So I think that in general, the most important thing actually about a lot of these disciplines is flexibility, and that we've lost sight of them kind of like as they've been socialized into bigger groups. Yes?
How do you balance keeping the team small with involving stakeholders that kind of need to be in the know and involved early on in the process without making the teams get too big?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, and I think that's something we've yet to figure out. The military actually did a really interesting study about the number of people that one person can trust, and it turns out that that limit is 5. So at any given time, you can only trust 5 people wholly. So that's really interesting, because I think about if you think a balanced team, so you've got 3 people, and then there's only 2 additional people that you can trust. Like, how does that work, especially at scale, within large organizations? So I think small, like seemingly benign behaviors are really important to think about. So I think often with product managers in specific, like we shield the team from the meeting, so to speak, because the engineering design says we don't want to be in meetings, right? And I think on one hand, like we shouldn't be in meetings just for the sake of being in meetings, but who is the right person to make the information available and to make the right decision? And if that's the designer or that's the engineer, like I think that they should be in the room. And like intentionalism is really important in a system like this, theoretically, right? Like, so I think some of these answers we don't know, but is it that we need the whole team in front of the stakeholders, or is it just that we need the designer or the PM? And how do we also, within scaled teams, say, okay, well now design represents 10 people, and PM represents 10 people, and engineering represents 20 people, and who's going to be the representative of those groups without becoming a bottleneck? And I think those are questions that I have yet to see answered, but I think I'm really interested in finding out as well. Yeah?
Do you guys use artifacts? So if you want to keep meetings small and not have people go, but also keep people on the same page and understanding things in the same way, rather than just meetings and talking and talking and talking, like what kinds of artifacts do you use?
So this is a great question. I think this is really important to balance team. I think information radiators are extremely important. So again, like limiting meetings to, like a meeting isn't about discussing things, it's actually about coming to decisions. So I think, how do we come to a decision quicker? Part of that is making sure that the information is available, and I think information radiators are really important for that. And I think the fidelity of those radiators is also really important. So I think often organizations mistake fidelity for better communication. So they're like, okay, like let's make these really beautiful personas, let's make these really detailed documents about what everybody discussed. And I think, really, does everybody have access to the information and a shared truth? So there's not really one truth in the system, but like, do we have a collective truth that we can all agree to? And so I think like having things up in a place where the whole organization that can see them is really important. Yeah.
So I heard stakeholders talked about in the context of meetings. Have you found a way to incorporate stakeholders in the day-to-day operations of building a product?
Yeah, I think one way is back to what we were saying before. I think information radiators are really important, and I think socializing information radiators is too. So I think that communicating to the stakeholders that our expectation is that they're actually looking at these things, and that they're actually slowing down productivity when they're not engaging in these things. Then they come to me and they say, well, what's going on? And I'm like, well, that's really interesting because all these things are up and have been changing, and again, like you don't want to be in a place where you're against them, but I would say inviting them to take part in the process, and also like co-creation is a huge part of that. So saying like, okay, stakeholder, on the day-to-day basis, like what sort of system can we create that's relatively lo-fi, where you can continue to consume information, and also get the answers that you need, because also, right, they've got somebody they're answering to, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
What is your experience with tools? So I've seen that when it comes to the software development part, they're great tools. There's Git and GitHub, and kind of everybody knows what's going on. But the moment you leave the code part of the world, it becomes more fuzzy. So get everybody on the same page.
Yeah. So my preference is to have a very, very, very big toolkit, but then to be very thoughtful about using the right tool for the right problem. And I think like the tools are all available. Like we've got so many tools. I mean, how many digital collaboration boards do we need, right? Like we've got 20 of them out there that I can think of. And all of them have, right, slightly different feature sets. But I think getting back to, okay, what is our problem? And really being crisp about that and asking 5 whys. So like, is this our problem? And coming back, is that the problem? And is that the problem? And really getting down to it and saying, okay, what sort of solution serves the outcome that we want? And then going into the toolkit and saying, okay, like, which of these makes sense at the moment? And I think holding those decisions lightly is really important. So I think you can waste a lot of energy agreeing to a tool. So like pick a tool and use it, and if it stops serving the outcome, like change tools. And obviously, like I say that knowing that in large enterprises, that's easier said than done, right? Like you invest thousands, even millions of dollars into a tool, you're going to want to use it. But again, like especially with smaller teams, like avoid we're going to use this tool to end of time. Like reach into the toolkit, pull out the thing that makes the most sense at that moment, and then move on, I think, is my opinion. Yeah?
I'm curious how you see user research playing in this sort of tripod organization you have. Because from my experience, it's been really great to get things in front of the user or start those discussions as early as possible.
Yeah. So I think I think that goes back to some would say the main difference between UX and lean UX is actually co-creation within the team, and then co-creation with the customer. So I actually have a UX competency, and my belief is that user research should be happening through the whole process, and that there's different types of user research. And in the buckets, there's generative and evaluative and usability. And again, at any given time, you should be saying, okay, like, which of these do we need to use in order to get the answer that we need? And then within those categories, like, what specific type of user testing tool are we going to use to that end? And I think in this balanced team approach, it's really not just the job of the designer to do all of these things and then, like, you know, pop out a solution. Like, my hope is that you're doing it with the product manager, and you're actually doing it with the engineers as well. So I think this concept of imagining all of the possibilities and solutions is really important. It's subtle, but profoundly different, because you're actually inviting engineering in and saying, okay, what are the available solutions in technology, and are we really picking the best thing to serve the customer's needs? And they should be a part of that. And
technology can be really creative.
Yeah.
Solutions that the designer might not have.
Because everybody thinks of it differently. So again, like I don't necessarily expect the engineer to like lead the research, but I invite them to join the research with us, like to either write along. I think they absolutely should be a part of the synthesis process. And again, like those info radiators are really important. And then I think that setting the expectation that everybody is looking at those is really important as well. Yeah.
We struggled a little bit with having team members involved in multiple projects, and I was wondering, I guess, how you mitigate that, or is that just a no-no in general?
No. I don't know, and it depends. So I think it really depends on how the organization is structured, and I think so Pivotal Labs is part of a bigger organization of Pivotal, and we have Cloud Foundry, which is our version of AWS, and I think so we've seen. We have a particular way of working at scale that's worked for us, but it's dependent on a lot of other things being in place. So I think it really depends on the organization. Theoretically, you're focused on the one thing. Like, I mean, just as a product manager, your whole job is to make sure that like there's a prioritized list. So this idea that your job is priorities and that you yourself don't have priorities, like that there isn't one at the top there, is a little ridiculous, but is understandable considering operational needs and things like that. So I think a lot about that 5-person trust, and if you're operating at scale and you're needing to interface with other teams, like who are the people that I absolutely need to build a relationship with in order to make this a smoother process? And I know that wasn't the answer that we were both hoping for, but I'd love to have I'd love to have a conversation about it over coffee at length. I have a lot of thoughts in different directions about that specific problem. What else? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.